제 점벌도 님이 정도는 혼음 점벌가 되다 바그라다는 전도 실물도 돈바 되게 잘라기 시험서 저러 되는 점검서 저러 되게 시험도 일라나 지금에 본조 잘라서란데 공개 또반 보러 신지로 공개 또반 보러 신지로 공개 또반 보러 신지로
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. We can hear and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta.
Titsep samdame pa jotame pa jardame pa nyatame pa changme pinjitne shiwa chogji jankamna nyarajni yopar nam su janjib sanwa sai nyambu chira technit yopar nam yang tamshi sumchir tsaksam diang netrin di perikirdo tene tevjang shabir zamchir dirtoble shok chene lhabi janjib sanwa sai nyambu chirar nam dang tele tele ki lamne jurur shibi semchin changme par yap changmang bo te de rang rang gar pu dang me tog dam churje tog de tevjang soba lam chupam bar shis shanju sanwa sai nyambo dam nyamdal hoba semchin te dang no shanju sanwa sai nyambo lo ba lam ki nerk odar shi de shirmar do pe shanju lap ko ba shart yin no semchin te dang no ngun kara to ma me pa ne ko ro ne sa Kiam shangar sopa chonzi kyang me perin ruwa chukir dungar myungwa wo, te tog nam shangchib sangwa sayi nyambu. Rgya chebi nyang je dang shamba dang shindu zapi molam lafte ne rang rang gam jeba toba wo. Shkab ter te tog tamchir sumchir tsaksam ye ne se lag ne sem la gawa dang chuwa tsat me par kye te tebjang shakba la mug mabzim barf tabra shi so di ze sang dip chong dunde. Sanjib Jondon de Sirki, Sanjib Jondon de Sirki, Mdoktavi, Pombakiane, Sam de me par Jot de me par Jar de me par Nyat de me par Chang me Pipsia, Chodin Jikten, and Lobby Chance of San Watching, Bosay, and Butcher, and Giwala, Jerte, and the cut of Katsarto, the Kashning Marga, Doven Jikten, the Semjak Darorka, Namji, Sem Raptan, the Roshi, the young Tabalam, and Zibrashiso. Testana young Chachak, Chachak, Niki Semchin. Semchim namji wakchak ngamba na genre mani so tela dagi chura shiwa chogdi tabja chembo lap tenne wombor noa gajik la chu tupra shijan tapir nila tapra shiba go gewim drewe chan gajik la nandan ji kurve drewe tapra shiba go momba gajik la yida rambu ti se darar shede lam yang taba lap tsepa go le ngambi semchin Gajigla chartar shijang tapir nila tapar kivar mani so semchin te tagna ter tavi kyabar chembo yo pe daki kyang chirar na soban je te juru shibar te semchin lala kibi zisir nawa dang lala vadme kik zisir nawa dang lala ladang lik zisir nawa dang lala ladang jik zisir nawa dang lala la zhuwo dang naksir dang chaklong dang pangjong dang chiwo dang zangwa dang chimig dang chumba la sobe rgoni semchin te tag Juru shi so yang la 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 yashin jig zig dang la 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 changbi zig dang korlo jiri zig dang gemnin jig zig dang gerwu zig dang lombo zig dang dana don jig zig dang gerlong ma dang gemnin ma ne zong te nyang tu dang zhap chung ba dang rang sang tie dang shang chib sang hui shang chib sang wa la so bi zig ji tar shi ba go te dang tam shi yang sang ji ko ni zig Zizir na neptarwa na mayan no kyo kirtu dang da kukarwa chi mambo ka shate darwar kawir dik rapta zirwa rapta nambi semchin te tak jarar shi so terta na yang da darwar mani pa dang likim jewir mambi semchin lala ngansung go nesir tongner dingar chenpo mnyongwa go di tse da samchir saksam ji pupchang ne nan ji kurwa khtam da kyo ki ila chambar shu la Mamshi jinjirten dane zonte Dokasam jitsakam ji pupjane nandan de yukur waqtamna kyoki yilla chambar shola mamji jinjirten dane zont Ozon gyara shambanjik tenji kamsab shumbani semchindi nardungur tamchaktan dabjar desang gibir long tamba matub jibar dabjar shawa yang di tse jikten tamchi ji shangchib sanwa jikten tamchi ji shangchib sanwa sayi nyangbu zhiwa rna bakchig dik zigis kirti dungwam chima vjir jim sangi Jungdan de lander kutok sordo, dagna karwa chi toma me pane, sanji jivshin jivlav laften zimchir jirtob samji me kibadan shirab chimbor nam tobne pshok jinjiktim shiwa chukja kongok longu shimar ni jijin kong nam. Rnamsi jikten rerev jinda chirir kayong shiwa chukja njete, chira rerev jinda semchin shiwa chukja dhrurev shi. Tedag jing kumshok zimnar kyawsin dhrurev chignen korir kien chiya tang, tandab chardem nyingan jinda Nyangji dewa tobra shi ternam sanji ji chula giwa shawa chungzu giba te nyangmak chigdang, tugbak chigdang, shemak chigdang rdipchung chigdang, chartse mok chig zamgi giwish tsawab giba nam kyang daka rim zhin vjarni pambar jechir tobra shi sob chungdan deji teji fshirabir namji leji ngamba semchin tetagla tertir tigle chung varim zad muggu soji lang samda Soro chondande shirib jile ngambi semchin tedagla ter tada tigle chongrimzad mogu so teni sanji jishangchib sanwa sayi nyambo lafto changhagbar gonen darkata kwafsardo lakso rigjiva keji chirtir tambabjan jisa yarongo keji karwa che tongma me panem ta ibi semchin tamchib jarni shangchib da sem kene mawa tedag da yang semchin yongsu changnem ngumbar shangchibran yaro sayi nyambo sayi monam jimdo lepchivarna Chigdan dibi legartaya nipago.
Next, we will discuss the Sitigarbha Sutra. Today is Friday. There will be no classes tomorrow or the day after that. As for next week coming up, classes will basically be on Monday and Tuesday as scheduled. After that, there may also be some additional classes on Wednesday and Thursday, possibly. But as for the exact arrangements, we don't know yet for certain. Today, we will be discussing the sacred Sitigarbha Sutra together here in detail. Let me briefly explain to everyone first right now here today. This sacred Sitigarbha Sutra clearly describes the infinite merits of the great Sitigarbha Bodhisattva with profound meaning and great detail thoroughly. Just as we talked about in the last class, there is also a scripture called the Collection of Successive Tripitaka. Within the extensive collection of successive Tripitaka, there is a significant and detailed record called the Records of Efficacy of Ksitigarbha Image. In the records of efficacy of Ksitigarbha image, there was a monk in Tang dynasty. This monk usually didn't really care about the property of the monastic community. He did not properly observe the precepts strictly. All day long, his mind and conduct were extremely scattered and undisciplined, with no discipline at all. But later, this person passed away from the human world. After he departed from this world then, for a period of about 3 whole days altogether, even after a period of time, some specific parts of his physical body still noticeably retained a lingering warmth within them. 3 whole days later, he miraculously came back to life. Then, with deep remorse, he wept and truly repented. When people specifically asked him the precise reason for this particular reaction, he said that after he had passed away, he then went to the grand gate of a city. In front of this ancient city gate, a venerable monk suddenly appeared. This monk directly asked him, "Tell me, who exactly are you?" He said he was indeed Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. At that very moment, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said, "When you were living in the human world, you certainly made an image of me. Although you didn't even make any offerings, because you are the one who created this significant image. For this important reason, today I will teach you a valuable Dharma teaching. It would be truly beneficial if you could remember this teaching. If you are able to remember it clearly or recite it faithfully, then you will not fall into hell." At that time, the content of the verse was Avatamsaka Sutra. If one wishes to understand all Buddhas of the 3 times, one should contemplate in this way. All are created by the mind. There is such a verse. He clearly remembered this important verse and was indeed able to recite it accurately. After successfully reciting it, he then continued his journey onward to the grand court of King Yama. King Yama asked him, "What good deeds or virtuous acts did you do while you were in the human world?" At that time, he said that he hadn't done any virtuous deeds, and he hadn't properly observed the pure precepts, among other important things. He had committed many significant sins. The only remarkable thing was that he could clearly remember this one particular verse. Then he said, "I can indeed recite a single verse." King Yama then told him to recite the sacred verse just once. When he recited the profound verse that single time, a great many beings throughout the entire realm of hell were truly liberated. When he recited it again, even more beings were liberated at the same time. At this precise moment, King Yama, with a commanding voice, said, "Stop, do not recite any further," and promptly sent him back. After his return, he immediately woke up. That, in essence, is precisely what happened. After he fully woke up and carefully looked around his surroundings, he then realized that the profound Dharma he clearly remembered was actually derived from the teachings of the extensive Avatamsaka Sutra. It was one of the verses at the end from different versions. One should contemplate the nature of the Dharma realm. All is created by the mind. These last 2 lines, because of different translations, there are slight differences. The one I used is from the verse in Shikshananda's translation of the Avatamsaka Sutra. Afterwards, he also extensively shared his profound and transformative experience with a great many people and earnestly encouraged them to diligently study the profound Avatamsaka Sutra and conscientiously practice the true and authentic Dharma. So from this point, we have already come to clearly understand that whether one is listening to the teachings of the Ksitigarbha Sutra, which guides sentient beings towards liberation and understanding, or making images of the Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha, or hearing the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or printing the sacred Ksitigarbha Sutra, or even making beautiful images of Ksitigarbha, in all these meritorious cases, the resulting merit is truly extremely great. Here it also tells such an inspiring story. At the beginning, I'd like to tell this particular efficacy story. Then next, it proceeds to talk about the second significant chapter. This second chapter is specifically called the Assembly of Emanations. Here, emanations refer to the various manifestations or incarnations of the revered Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Many Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas in the end all gather together in the Trayastrimsha heaven. This is precisely what this particular chapter is truly about. What exactly is the main and most significant topic being discussed here? At that particular time, many emanations of the revered Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva were present in various different worlds, all engaged in liberating sentient beings. This time, when the revered Shakyamuni Buddha was profoundly turning the sacred Dharma wheel in the glorious Trayastrimsha heaven, all of extraordinary Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas, Bodhisattva manifestations from various and diverse worlds journeyed and arrived at the illustrious Trayastrimsha heaven. Following their arrival, the Venerable Shakyamuni Buddha then profoundly expounded the true and liberating Dharma for them. This is the kind of manifestation described. Of course, regarding the content discussed here, those of us who truly have faith can readily accept it as truth. But if someone truly has no faith, then some of these principles may be very hard to imagine. That is why, in the Treatise on the Great Perfection of Wisdom, it is also said, the ocean of Buddha Dharma, faith is the means to enter, wisdom is the means to cross. This is the reason it is stated this way. If you wish to truly obtain the Buddha Dharma, which is as vast as the ocean, then to truly gain it, you must rely on faith to enter, and rely on profound wisdom to attain ultimate liberation, or to help all sentient beings cross over to the other shore. At this point it says here, in the second chapter, it is stated that at this time the Buddha had hundreds of thousands of millions of billions, countless, inconceivable, immeasurable, and indescribable beings present. Here, 4 different characteristics describe this. our ordinary minds cannot imagine, and with ordinary language it is impossible to discuss. Our worldly conventional language is simply and utterly inadequate. Within our worldly conventions it is truly impossible to accurately measure, and then, even using written words or other available means, it is still quite impossible to fully and completely express it in its entirety. Within countless Asamkhya worlds, the meaning is that there are things that are inconceivable and inexpressible, and in these boundless, limitless Asamkhya worlds. In every hell realm, an emanation of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, in reality the worlds are infinite. In these limitless places, the cycle of rebirth within the 6 realms. Within the 6 realms, there are hell realms. If there are beings in the hell realms, then in every hell realm, there is a manifestation of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. There are countless, innumerable Kshitigarbha Bodhisattvas. This particular time, they have all collectively come to the magnificent Trayastrimsha heaven palace. So, what exactly can we observe and discern from this significant gathering, whether it is the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or some great accomplished beings in the process of liberating sentient beings throughout the countless Asamkhya worlds? They are able to manifest in all kinds of forms of sentient beings from the 6 realms in order to benefit sentient beings. Especially within the profound and suffering hell realms, like the Venerable Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, he also manifests countless, truly boundless emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, who compassionately liberate these truly pitiful beings in the depths of the hells. And it's not just Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. For example, in the biography of Master Tsongkhapa, it is also said that at that time, Master Tsongkhapa was in India, in Nepal, including Wutai Mountain and Tushita Heaven, all at the same time, with many divine emanations or spiritual incarnations manifesting simultaneously and concurrently. In the biographies of the eminent monks and great masters we know, there are also many cases where at the same time, indeed those sentient beings with the right karmic connection could see their forms, hear their Vajra speech, and receive their blessings of wisdom. There are countless such cases, truly very, very many indeed. In the past, when the revered Jetsun Milarepa, a highly accomplished practitioner, was approaching parinirvana at that time, in order to liberate a particularly ill-tempered sentient being, he went to a certain specific place. It should have been in a particular designated location. And then, at a later point in time, he clearly stated, "When I eventually pass away from this life, generally speaking, I do not wish to pass away in a city. Because if I were to pass away in a city, it would be like a king dying in a commoner's house. I truly want to go to a quiet, peaceful place." When he was about to go to a quiet place, many disciples asked, "Should we perhaps carry you there in a palanquin?" Then he said, "All of my various appearances, whether it is the appearance of a temporary illness or the appearance of a bodily physical death, these are all just appearances indeed. I can quite easily go there by myself." At that particular time, when Milarepa went, a group of his disciples also went accompanying him along. When they arrived at the place he wanted to go to, when they arrived at the place called Chua, or something like that, some disciples saw that Milarepa had already arrived there ahead of time. Some devoted disciples saw the revered Milarepa on the road, deeply meditating in a certain tranquil place, perhaps within a secluded cave. Others observed him diligently teaching the profound Dharma in a specific location, and still others witnessed him beginning to graciously accept offerings in someone's welcoming home. Later, everyone had different accounts, and there was no shared perception or common understanding among them. Afterwards, the revered Venerable Milarepa then said, "It is simply that you completely lack genuine faith. What appears before you is merely a profound manifestation. I intentionally just manifest right in front of you, that's all." So, when it comes to truly great enlightened masters and profoundly accomplished spiritual beings, as they peacefully approach their ultimate parinirvana, the final liberation from all suffering and rebirth, various different signs and auspicious omens, indicating profound spiritual significance may appear. especially when the revered Master Milarepa passed into parinirvana, his ultimate liberation from the cycle of rebirth. There was also a rather special case, a being with particularly heavy negative karma. Some biographies say that at that time when Milarepa went, he originally intended to liberate this being but was not successful. The biographies are not especially clear about this matter. So the karma of sentient beings can truly be said to be inconceivable. Now here it is said that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, all of his emanations in the hell realms, came together in the Trayastrimsha heaven. It is described in this way. So from this we can see that this world is truly inconceivable. In the past, when we talked about such inconceivable things, some people might have found it hard to believe. How could that be? Because at that time, whether it was the heliocentric theory or the geocentric theory, in earlier times, people's understanding of the world was certainly not as clear or comprehensive as it is for us today in the advanced 21st century. Nowadays, whether we meticulously use powerful astronomical telescopes to observe distant celestial bodies or carefully infer from various other sophisticated astronomical perspectives, it is indeed truly the case that in our vast and expansive world there are countless, boundless and infinite worlds. Sometimes whether we're looking on a computer or seeing it vividly in photographs stretching across the entire vast sky, there are densely packed, truly countless, shimmering celestial bodies, bright spots much like glowing stars. But these bright spots, in fact, are just many celestial worlds that emit their own light, much like planets that possess their own illumination. As for those without light, just like our own Earth where humans live now, there are even more, countless and boundless. The Earth that we humans currently inhabit, from the perspective of the entire universe, or from the viewpoint of the entire Milky Way, all these enormous, massive celestial bodies, including Earth that we have now, are actually nothing more than a tiny speck of dust in the cosmos, just a very, very small speck of dust when compared to the universe. Looking at it from this perspective, although some of us may think in our hearts that it's indescribable, inconceivable, and beyond discussion, such concepts are a bit hard to accept. But it's not just Buddhist terms and concepts that some of us find hard to accept. Even many fundamental concepts or captivating photographs in astronomy or its very own theories, for those of us who are not professionals and who have never studied this field, we can also say that the concept of this world is truly inconceivable, indescribable, immeasurable, and unspeakable. This principle, even for people today, is indeed the case. In a certain particular sense, this is especially clear and evident when we examine it. So in Buddhism, throughout its history, over 2,500 years ago regarding this world, there was already a kind of macroscopic understanding. As for this understanding, in our current era of technology, which can be considered quite advanced, when we look back now, we can clearly realize that Buddhist cosmology was not as narrow, limited, or restrictive as some religions or scholars of that particular time truly believed. It was not that narrow or restricted, not at all. Many of the profound ideas from that ancient time can be found within Buddhism, where we can truly appreciate their immense profundity and expansive vastness. I think this point should be clear and understandable to everyone present. Moving on, we will now delve into a more detailed discussion regarding the Tathagata's profound and boundless miraculous powers, whether it encompasses the innumerable worlds across the 10 directions of the universe or extends to all conceivable aspects and phenomena within existence. Those who attain liberation through Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, this time the Tathagata's miraculous power, the miraculous power of Shakyamuni Buddha, in all aspects related to attaining liberation, as well as those who have come out of the path of karma, there may be two kinds of people. One is those who have already attained liberation, these emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, who liberated beings, have arrived, and in the past relied on the blessings and power of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, were inspired and comforted by him, and come out from the path of karma, whether they are all kinds of sentient beings or sages. Each has numbers reaching into the hundreds of millions of Nayutas. There are especially many among those who have come this time, some of whom were rescued by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and some were also rescued by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, as well as by the Buddha's miraculous power. Because some ghosts and spirits and some worldly beings, they should have been rescued by solely relying on the Buddha's unwavering divine power. Everyone is holding incense and flowers, as well as all kinds of offerings, and have reverently come before the Buddha to present their heartfelt offerings and pay homage to the Venerable Shakyamuni Buddha. Because this sacred scene is imbued with a solemn atmosphere, they respectfully and devoutly begin to make their precious offerings. At this time, the people who came together with Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, what kind of people are they? These companions who came together were all taught and transformed by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had previously inspired them to give rise to bodhicitta, helped them mature and liberated them. They have already generated the mind of never turning back, the unsurpassed, complete, perfect enlightenment, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. They have aroused the Bodhi mind. So, who are these people? They are all beings Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva encouraged to bodhicitta. These sentient beings, since countless eons ago, originally wandered through birth and death, suffering in the 6 realms. They kept revolving in the cycle of birth and death within the 6 realms of samsara, enduring endless, immeasurable, and profound suffering without even a single moment's respite. What were these people like originally? Originally, they were immersed in the cycle of samsara, constantly, at every single moment, experiencing extremely intense and powerful suffering as sentient beings throughout existence. But later, because they relied on extraordinary Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, with his truly vast compassion and his great, profound, loving kindness, as well as his deeply held and unwavering vows to liberate all sentient beings. For this significant reason, later on, each and every one of them attained different, distinct levels of spiritual realization. Some of these are the same as what we discussed the day before yesterday. We will talk about them later. The fruits of Shravakas or Pratyeka Buddhas, the stages of attainment for Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. Though some may not have attained fruition, from a worldly perspective, they have gained some miraculous powers and meditative concentration. In this way, they have each attained their respective realizations. Yesterday, when we discussed earlier, we mentioned that all sentient beings in the form realm, formless realm, and desire realm are included. Quite a number among them, though not necessarily all of them. Some came because they heard the name of Shakyamuni Buddha, while others, indeed the vast majority of them, should be attributed to the profound and boundless power of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's sacred vows, who through his immense and unwavering compassion and his benevolent and steadfast guidance, meticulously brought each and every one of them to this celestial realm, after they had successfully arrived and settled within the glorious and resplendent Trayastrimsha heaven. Their hearts were truly filled with great enthusiasm and profound joy. Everyone gazed intently upon the Tathagata, unwilling to look away even for a single moment, their eyes never ceasing to rest upon him, always with utmost respect and a joyful heart, gazing intently at the venerable and sacred face of the Tathagata. It was not at all easy for them to come all the way here, to this very sacred place, to reach the Trayastrimsha heaven, and after arriving, the majestic appearance of the Buddha was also extremely rare and precious. Therefore, after they had arrived, they kept their eyes intently fixed upon the dignified and majestic form of the Tathagata at this very moment. At this moment, Shakyamuni Buddha, with his radiant and golden arms, extended them forth, and then, with profound compassion, gently placed his hand upon the heads. Upon the heads of what kind of sentient beings exactly were these blessings bestowed? On countless, immeasurable, inconceivable, indescribable, and incalculable beings. Within limitless Asamkhyeya worlds, he placed his hand on the crowns of the emanated forms of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Mahasattva on their heads. The Buddha possesses a dignified and majestic form, But when he performed the act of placing his hand on their heads, at that very same moment, all of them indeed, the emanated forms of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, who had come from worlds that are inconceivable, indescribable, and incalculable, the emanated forms of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, at that very same moment, he indeed gently placed his hand upon the crowns of all of them. So, generally speaking, in much earlier historical times, for example, whether it was with our respected and wise teachers or truly great and influential masters, the so-called placing the hand on the crown or empowerment, some people have had different interpretations of this. But in fact, the act of actually placing the hand on the crown, the head, is mentioned in many of the Buddha's sutras, including the Lotus Sutra and the Vimalakirti Sutra, which we have discussed as well. Therefore, for truly accomplished and profoundly spiritual masters, whether it is the spiritual blessings or the extraordinary siddhis that reside within their continuous spiritual lineage and being, these can also be powerfully and effectively transmitted through the sacred act of physically placing the hand upon the crown, allowing devoted disciples with a deep and auspicious karmic connection to readily and fully receive these invaluable spiritual gifts and attainments. So, as for the Buddha, he placed his hand on the crowns of the emanated forms of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. For a devoted disciple with unwavering faith, receiving the sacred placing of the hand upon the crown is perhaps the most profound and effective way to truly receive divine blessings. Experiencing these blessings in the revered presence of the spiritual teacher. Personally, when my own cherished teacher was still alive and with us, I would often receive the teacher's blessing through the placing of the hand on my crown. After my beloved teacher sadly passed away, in my dreams, whenever I vividly saw my dear teacher, the first thing that would often happen in the dream was the placing of the hand on my crown. So in my diary, I have often written down some of these dreams. Sometimes when I look back at them, I realize that I have received the placing of the hand on my crown in dreams quite frequently. Therefore, for those with genuine faith, the placing of the hand upon the crown should truly be a meaningful way to receive siddhi, a profound form of divine blessing. But for those individuals who truly lack faith or who hold wrong views, even if the hand is placed on the crown repeatedly, it might not have meaning for them. On the contrary, it could even harm their own spiritual mind stream, so it may be meaningless for them. At that particular time, Shakyamuni Buddha, the Enlightened One, was placing his hand on the crown of the emanations of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, and at the same time Shakyamuni Buddha said this. The Buddha spoke about his own experience. He said, in this degenerate age of the 5 impurities, Shakyamuni Buddha, as we mentioned, he made 500 great vows and took responsibility for beings in this degenerate world of the 5 impurities. Beings who are extremely stubborn and difficult to tame. He diligently taught and guided such incredibly stubborn and hard to transform beings, actively helping them to effectively subdue their own unruly minds, thereby enabling all sentient beings to truly discipline their inner minds, and then abandon their wrong views and misconceptions, returning to the right path gradually. Shakyamuni Buddha said himself, I began to guide and transform the sentient beings of this very particular impure world with great compassion and various skillful means throughout many lifetimes. But during this process of transformation, 1 or 2 out of every 10 still clung to their bad habits. When I was teaching and transforming them, about 1 or 2 people out of every 10 individuals, their deeply ingrained habitual tendencies were very hard to fundamentally change. These persistent bad habits were truly difficult to overcome. This is precisely what the Buddha wisely said. Generally speaking, this is indeed the undeniable case for us as well. If we do not help sentient beings, what might happen to them? If you don't care about them at all, no matter what happens to them in life, you might not know or care what happens to them in the end whatsoever or how they suffer. It has nothing to do with me. As long as it doesn't affect my life, that's enough. But if you truly try to help and liberate sentient beings, for example, out of 10 people, maybe 1 or 2, out of 100 people, that's about 10 to 20, which is a significant portion of the population, and out of 1,000 people, maybe 1 or 200, that's precisely how it is, 1/10 or perhaps even 2/10. So, even during the time when Shakyamuni Buddha was present in the world, he also made a comprehensive and insightful general analysis of all sentient beings. The Buddha then said to the Venerable Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, the sentient beings in this degenerate world are very difficult to liberate. Indeed, in the challenging process of liberating them, many great and venerable monks and accomplished masters, some of whom were truly remarkable and exceptionally influential in the past, have faced immense challenges, have, during the intricate process of liberating all sentient beings, because the formidable power of malevolent demons is extraordinarily strong, and the immense strength of the demon king is exceedingly great. And as a direct consequence, just like the revered and great master Langri-Repa in the past, he said, in the process of liberating sentient beings, indeed, except for those individuals who truly break their solemn vows, absolutely no one has ever surpassed me. But as for those who break their vows, I am unable to liberate them. Later it seems that he manifested parinirvana, which is the ultimate state of liberation, in a very short period of time. So what exactly did the Buddha, the enlightened one, say here? Among any group of 10 individuals, there are always at least 1 or 2 whose habitual tendencies are extremely difficult to change. Therefore, generally speaking, whether it is a Dharma teacher, a Kempo, or a Kenmo, as ordinary people, if you don't guide sentient beings, you won't realize this. But if you do guide sentient beings, then among them there will be a very small number of individuals who in the end either cannot be truly liberated or cannot be fully liberated, or if they can be, it is extremely, extremely difficult. If this is the case even in front of the Buddha, then for us, especially in this degenerate age, at the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, the average human lifespan was approximately 100 years, which was indeed still considered to be a very little before the decline of the fortunate Eon. Now, as we approach the era of the Buddha's semblance Dharma, we are getting closer and closer to it. At this time, perhaps when the Buddha was in the world in terms of liberating beings, if it was indeed only 1 or 2 out of 10, then, at this very moment, could it conceivably become 3 or even 4 out of a possible 10? Is it truly possible for it to be like that? Moreover, the Buddha, with his profound and immeasurable accumulation of magnificent merit and virtue, and possessing such truly all-encompassing, boundless and perfect wisdom, his skillful means in liberating sentient beings were also inconceivable. So if even in his presence it was only 1 or 2 out of 10, then for us ordinary beings, when we give rise to bodhicitta, indeed, after a certain point, it really becomes impossible to continue. We just can't hold on anymore. And we might just experience something like this. When we carefully read the profound biographies of many eminent monks and truly great masters, for example, their entire spiritual undertakings and dedicated efforts are also thoughtfully divided into many distinct stages, such as the initial foundational stage, the middle developmental stage, and the final culminating stage. Indeed, there are such clear and well-defined divisions. In this particular regard, I sincerely think that for many of us who diligently work to genuinely benefit all sentient beings, including those with some experience and those who are motivated, we should also, in our own hearts, be prepared in all aspects. Sentient beings in the degenerate age, indeed, at a certain point, may encounter all sorts of challenging situations manifesting in many different ways and times. When these situations arise, whether it is occasionally failing to benefit sentient beings or in one's daily own meditation practice, we should certainly be prepared in every possible respect. Here as well, this happens to about 1 or 2 out of 10. For a very select few individuals, it is truly and especially difficult indeed. Shakyamuni Buddha says below that some of these can be explained, and he explains the entire process of Shakyamuni Buddha benefiting sentient beings, whether it is through his numerous divine emanations or sacred spiritual incarnations, or in response to these particularly negative sentient beings. How does he manifest himself? There may be 2 ways to explain this, but generally speaking, when Shakyamuni Buddha manifested countless emanations to benefit sentient beings, in fact, there were hundreds of thousands, even millions, which is an extremely, truly large number, right? The Buddha also skillfully and effectively used various expedient means to benefit all sentient beings. So, a natural question arises, how precisely did he accomplish this? For those individuals with sharp faculties, after hearing the profound Dharma, they could immediately and readily accept it. Among the diverse groups he guided, some with sharp faculties would immediately understand after listening, and once they understood, they instantly eliminate afflictions within mind streams and accept teachings right away. Some attained results immediately, gaining virtuous outcomes because causes and conditions sentient beings were extremely exceptional. A slight encounter was enough, like a ripe melon falling from its stem. For such people, the Buddha at that time, through encouragement and exhortation, they would immediately attain realization. There were also some individuals who were quite dull, possessing very inferior faculties, and indeed foolish. For these, it took a long time to transform them before they would return to the right path. It required a great deal of time and was extremely laborious. Then, little by little, they were guided to abandon wrong views and return to the correct path. There were such cases as well. There were also some whose negative karma was heavy, whose karmic forces were deep and severe. Even in the presence of Shakyamuni Buddha, in the end, there was nothing that could be done for them, whether in the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom or in the Vinaya Sutra. We often see certain sentient beings who have no karmic connection with the Buddha. They simply have no affinity with the Buddha. For other Buddhists, it would be even more difficult, wouldn't it? Because the Buddha is so fully endowed with all virtues. So beings are divided into 4 types. There is also a type whose negative karma is extremely, extremely heavy, and they do not give rise to any reverence. They might occasionally develop a bit of faith, but very quickly their afflictions and wrong views will obscure it. In fact, sentient beings with extremely deep afflictions are sometimes truly pitiable or troublesome. It's possible that a single being could have the afflictions of 100 people, or perhaps possess the afflictions of 10 people all at once. This is entirely possible, because whether it's wrong knowledge or wrong views, or suffering or jealousy, they are fully endowed with all kinds of afflictions. In such cases, even the Buddha finds it very difficult to transform such beings. They do not give rise to reverence, because they lack respect. They have no faith and no sense of fear either. How can such beings be guided or transformed? It is extremely, extremely difficult. Therefore, the Buddha categorized people into 4 types here. One type is those with sharp faculties who attain results immediately. And then there are the foolish and those with heavy karmic obstacles, 4 types in total. The Buddha further said regarding these sentient beings, in fact, each person's karmic forces from previous lives are different. The differences in their spiritual capacities are vast and varied, extremely great. Some people, if you just speak a little bit of Dharma to them, are moved to tears and can immediately accept it. They then truly give rise to right view. For others, no matter how many years or even eons you speak to them, their situation only gets worse and worse. Some, if you speak to them gradually and patiently, can slowly return to the right path. The Buddha uses various manifestations and methods to liberate them. So what forms do these manifestations for liberation take? Because sentient beings have different spiritual capacities, as mentioned below, some appear in the form of wise men to personally guide them, while others appear in the form or unique identity of women to gently guide them through various situations in life. There are also those who manifest as heavenly beings, dragons and the like, and some appear as ethereal ghosts or extraordinarily powerful deities. In Han region, ghosts usually refer to hungry ghosts and similar beings. As for deities, it refers to certain immortals, like the immortals described in Taoism. These are all figures that people tend to revere. Such ghostly or divine forms could very well be manifestations of the Buddha. There are also those that appear as the various emanations we often talk about, such as mountains and forests, rivers and plains, ponds, springs, wells, and so on. These all serve to truly benefit sentient beings. All these forms can be means for beings to attain liberation. These manifestations of the Buddha described in the Great Chariot Commentary on Resting the Mind in the Great Perfection, where many kinds of manifestations are discussed, even things like roads or lamps, or even so-called thresholds, these could all very well be manifestations of the Buddha, just as it is also stated in the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Tathagata's profound realm is as vast as space itself. If we speak of the Tathagata's most profound state, it can be equated with the expanse of space. In order to truly accord with all sentient beings, he pervades all worlds. Because the Buddha acts in accordance with sentient beings, he completely, or rather in every way, indeed enters into the world. In this particular way, what may profoundly appear to us, whether as an ordinary typical male or female form, or even as majestic mountains, flowing rivers, and countless other diverse manifestations of existence, in fact, all bear the aspects of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It is very possible that those individuals we often cannot truly stand, whether they are enemies we deeply resent or even truly evil people, may appear to be that way on the surface. But in reality, they are also benefiting sentient beings in different ways. This is entirely possible. Therefore, in Buddhism, this important teaching is commonly called manifesting numerous various forms through transcendent illusion. For practical example, manifesting as celestial Indra or supreme Brahma, or appearing in the form of the Brahma king, or as a truly great wheel-turning king, presidents or heads of state of various countries, or those powerful kings, or manifesting as devoted lay practitioners, truly indeed. And among lay practitioners there may be upasakas, but here it should explicitly refer to other people. such as the so-called venerable elders or generous benefactors, or appearing in the distinguished form of a powerful king, previously recognized as a great wheel-turning king, and here specifically as a reigning king, or appearing as influential prime ministers or other significant officials. Officials here are equivalent to today's leaders, such as provincial governors, these kinds of influential officials, or manifesting as revered bhikkhus, dedicated bhikkhunis, or other formally ordained spiritual individuals who serve in various capacities, or as lay Buddhist practitioners, such as upasakas and upasikas, and even as accomplished beings, such as the Shravakas and the Arhats. Arhats are those who have attained spiritual fruition, while Shravakas here may not have indeed truly attained the highest fruition yet, including stream enterers or those on the path, once returners or those on the path, non-returners or those on the path, and those on the path too, or who have attained arhatship, and also pratyeka Buddhas, that is, solitary realizers, and even as bodhisattvas and so on, to benefit all sentient beings and ultimately guide them to true liberation. In this way, not only does the Buddha truly appear before us in his very own unique form, it's not just the Buddha's form alone. Nowadays, when many people currently often visit sacred temples, they show great reverence to the Buddha. Oh, he is the one who liberates us. But as for others, including many people around us, we think this is a Brahmin, this is an Upasaka, this is a monastic, and we have no sense of reverence at all. We never consider that among them there could be manifestations of Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. So the Buddha himself said, when I liberate sentient beings, if I were to enter the world only in the form of a Buddha, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to liberate them. Therefore, I may also take on a human form to liberate sentient beings. For example, in Chinese Han Buddhism, figures like Han Shan and Shi De, they are actually considered to be profound and sacred manifestations of the revered bodhisattvas Manjushri and Samantabhadra. Additionally, there are also several highly respected and influential monks, such as the Venerable Master Chingding, who are said by some to be manifestations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Some of these claims may have just been casually passed down by disciples, but some of them truly are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas manifesting in the forms of various great masters. Of course, these are perhaps the more widely recognized great masters in the world. Like in Tibetan area, it is said that Trisong Detsen is the emanation of Manjushri Bodhisattva, Songtsen Gampo is the manifestation of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and Latotori is Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. There are various opinions about whose manifestation they are. So, some of these are indeed quite commonly recognized by many people, and some truly do possess their own distinct and unique characteristics. In the past, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok was still alive, I always thought, perhaps without much substantial reason, but I always truly wanted to believe it. No matter which reincarnation is mentioned in his prophecies, I believe that the precious Guru is none other than Manjushri Bodhisattva himself. This is my firm conviction, regardless of whether other people acknowledge it or not. Whenever I pray, I always feel a deep connection. I also regard the Guru as being inseparable from Manjushri Bodhisattva. Everything that the Guru says, everything that he does, and everything that he teaches, I view it all with a completely pure and unbiased perspective. In this particular way, I genuinely feel that for someone like me, truly burdened with very heavy negative karma, I must have indeed received a great deal of Manjushri Bodhisattva's wisdom, as well as Manjushri Bodhisattva's blessings and Manjushri Bodhisattva's unique compassion. I have always strongly believed this. Of course, in some biographies of His Holiness, it is said that he is the emanation of Lerab Lingpa, and there are indeed many different historical accounts, including that of the powerful Damchen Dorje, among several others. There are various accounts of emanations of Guru Padmasambhava as well, but other people's views are just their own opinions. Perhaps I have reasons, or perhaps I just don't. However, throughout the entire process of relying on my dedicated teacher, I learned a great deal. I have regarded my Guru as the true Manjushri Bodhisattva. Personally, this is how I am, and it remains so even now. Even now, I often, whether practicing Guru Yoga or when you sincerely, devotedly pray at home daily, because the Venerable Master has truly many sacred, traditional, authentic rituals and deep meditation practices in Mount Wutai, it is absolutely indeed a truly core and vital, essential, basic requirement to treat the Guru and Manjushri Bodhisattva are one, and we do receive a lot of blessings. We often recite In His Holiness's prayer, it is said that one receives the blessings of Manjushri Bodhisattva at Mount Wutai, entering the heart. That's all it says. But in fact, I personally believe they are inseparable and not different. Whether the Guru is alive or not, there is no difference. If the Guru and Manjushri Bodhisattva are truly one and the same, then one will undoubtedly receive his profound and abundant blessings. For example, speaking personally, although His Holiness also very strongly encourages reciting the sacred name of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, and also encourages reciting the name of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and also encourages reciting the names of others, including the name of the Bodhisattva who removes obstacles, there are such practices. But for me to regard the form of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva as inseparable, perhaps this is just my own conceptual discrimination. It seems that visualizing this is a bit difficult for me. But visualizing the sacred form of Manjushri Bodhisattva together is quite easy to do. Perhaps this is just my own conceptual discrimination, or just something I've experienced in my own practice. You could say it's a personal insight. So I think when it comes to liberating sentient beings, it doesn't always have to be through Buddhas alone. Sometimes it's bodhisattvas, sometimes it's even those sentient beings whom we might not recognize at all. The sentient beings who are truly all around us are indeed all profound manifestations of Buddhas and bodhisattvas. The above discussion was specifically about Shakyamuni Buddha. Next, the Buddha instructs, "You should observe and understand how, over countless and immeasurable eons, I have diligently and persistently endured numerous hardships and immense difficulties in order to liberate such difficult to transform, stubborn, and suffering sentient beings." He says, "Look at me. Throughout many long lifetimes and countless eons, I have truly practiced with such great diligence and indeed endured so much considerable hardship." Of course, the Buddha did not actually experience such pain or sorrow. These feelings truly do not exist for him. But in appearance, it does seem that way, especially in the degenerate age, when it comes to stubborn, hard-to-transform sentient beings. It is very difficult to liberate them. These stubborn, hard-to-transform and suffering sentient beings, indeed sometimes sentient beings are especially stubborn and resistant to transformation. No matter how you try to explain it with the Dharma, it just doesn't work. Even if you use worldly methods, it's still impossible. Even if Shakyamuni Buddha himself appeared before them, it might still be of no use. There truly are such stubborn and hard-to-transform sentient beings. So the Buddha says, "Look, it has not been easy for me at all to liberate such stubborn and hard-to-transform sentient beings. And as for those who have not yet been tamed, they follow the force of their karma. Because at that time, those whom Shakyamuni Buddha could not subdue, they would certainly follow the retribution of their past karma. They might indeed fall into the great and evil destinies and experience profound suffering. At this crucial point, Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, you should remember what exactly? When I was in the heaven of the 33, that is the Trayastrimsha heaven, I gave you instructions, conveying my deepest trust and expectations. I earnestly entrusted you, or you could say, commissioned you with a profound mission. This mission is to save the extremely difficult to liberate sentient beings who reside within the challenging and complex Saha world, a realm filled with suffering and obstacles. It is solely up to you to liberate them." Later in the sacred chapter on solemn entrustment, when the great responsibility was carefully handed over, Shakyamuni Buddha also said compassionately at that crucial time, "Those whom I am currently unable to liberate this time, the most especially difficult to save sentient beings, they must truly be entrusted to you, Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. You must not leave a single one behind. You have to save all of them." That is indeed what he said at the time. The Buddha required him to always keep in mind the salvation of sentient beings. When it comes to saving them, only you, Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, can do it. These last sentient beings must be saved. Perhaps not everyone can be like the Buddha or Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, but especially for Dharma teachers who expound the teachings, perhaps in your own work of spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings, it would be best if you could save all the sentient beings with whom you have karmic connections. But if you truly have no way to save them, you should also be truly prepared to entrust them to others with whom they have a strong affinity. When you really have no way at that time, because you simply cannot do it, even though you may have tried extremely hard, hoping to save them all. But in the end, if you truly cannot save them, perhaps you might be able to find others who are more suitably qualified to help them with their needs. I think for many people it's impossible to. Even the Buddha could not save everyone. In this age of 5 degenerations, let alone saving others, even planting a virtuous seed is difficult. Karmic connections of beings are inconceivable. Some are saved by Manjushri Bodhisattva, while Ananda is unable to do so. There are some whom even Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara cannot save, and only Ananda and Kashyapa are able to help them. Such phenomena definitely exist, and we are the same way. For example, when we wish to wholeheartedly benefit sentient beings, we might actually end up harming sentient beings instead of benefiting them. If we entrust the care of this sentient individual to someone else, for example, if today there are so many people present and I truly have no way to help, if I hand them over to someone else, perhaps if the karmic connection is truly very right, when the conditions are favorable, they may quickly attain liberation. This particular approach is also very important indeed. Here, it is also explicitly mentioned that when you think of the Trayastrimsha heaven, I have already explained it to you very clearly. The sentient beings of this Saha world, when Maitreya Buddha appears in the world, according to calculations, it will be 5,670,000,000 years from now. When Maitreya Bodhisattva becomes a Buddha and appears in the world, at that time they will attain liberation, be free from all suffering, and receive the Buddha's prediction of enlightenment. At that time, when the Buddha gathered all the emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, when all his emanations had fully assembled there, he then gave such a profound instruction. From this significant event, we can clearly see that even the enlightened Buddha, when it comes to certain deeply entangled sentient beings, truly has no effective way to ultimately save them. Though Ksitigarbha Sutra does not reach the end, it's important to note in the Sutra of Ksitigarbha, these emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva come here, and after they arrive, the Buddha gives his final instructions. I wish to save all sentient beings in this degenerate world, but in the end it is impossible to save them all. Only a few can be saved, and that task is entrusted to you, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This was explained to him very clearly and precisely. So in this particular way, everyone should also be completely clear about this matter. At this time, all the emanated Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas from all worlds merged into a single form. Originally, as mentioned earlier, they were beyond description and beyond words. So many Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas. These Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas were assigned to different hells to save sentient beings. After all arrived, the miraculous manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are also inconceivable. They immediately transformed into a single form of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Then tears streamed down their faces, showing profound expressions of deep and heartfelt sorrow. Then, with utmost reverence, they addressed the Venerable Shakyamuni Buddha in this solemn way. The great Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, with immense wisdom, said, "Since countless eons ago, throughout immeasurable time, in fact, it is truly through the divine blessings and enlightened guidance of the Buddha that can attain inconceivable miraculous powers." Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said, "I rely completely on the most revered, compassionate Shakyamuni Buddha and have already attained inconceivable miraculous powers, as well as truly great wisdom." Of course, only the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, indeed, has the ability to manifest so many emanations. Otherwise, for others, it'd be impossible to enter the hell realms, let alone even indeed the hells of so many worlds. Even just entering a single hell realm might not be that easy, really. So he says, because I have received the Buddha's great blessings, miraculous power, and profound wisdom, I have already manifested throughout worlds, as numerous as the sands of hundreds of thousands of millions of Ganges rivers. In each and every world, I constantly manifest hundreds of thousands of millions of bodies, and each individual body saves hundreds of thousands of millions of sentient beings universally, guiding them all to take refuge in the three jewels, so that they may forever leave behind all the endless and suffering cycles of birth and death, and ultimately attain the profound and peaceful state of nirvana. Here, relying on the immense and compassionate Buddha's blessing power, the great Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva tirelessly saves all suffering sentient beings from their karmic burdens. So how does Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva save sentient beings? Look at the countless worlds and the countless manifestations guiding sentient beings to take refuge in three jewels so that they ultimately escape birth and death. In fact, taking refuge in the three jewels is truly very important. If after taking sincere refuge, you are among the sacred community of the three jewels, whether you are ordained or a layperson, as long as you do not commit great negative deeds in your lifetime, and you maintain profound respect and unwavering devotion toward your teacher and the three jewels, even if your practice is not particularly diligent, even if you are not especially diligent, as long as your view remains unchanged up until the moment of death, and your conduct remains consistent, and you continue with your recitations and practices. If all these remain unchanged, those who have taken refuge in the three jewels are described in the Sutra of Recollecting the Three Jewels. They will not fall into lower realms. They will not fall into the lower states of existence. This is extremely important for us as well. Therefore, here too, one first takes refuge in the three jewels, then is forever freed from samsara, and finally attains nirvana. As for this point, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva truly possesses this ability, this kind of truly immense power, and such a profound and great strength of aspiration. The Sutra of the 10 Wheels of Ksitigarbha also explicitly states the truly courageous one named Ksitigarbha manifests the sacred appearance of a monastic. In actual fact, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, the profound meaning of Ksitigarbha, also refers to a vast treasury of merit, and also to his great courage in liberating sentient beings. Moreover, he appears in the form of a monastic. According to the Sutra of the 10 Wheels of Ksitigarbha, the main form of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is monastic. Then, among the many revered forms of the 8 great bodhisattvas, who are central figures in Tibetan Buddhism, it should perfectly correspond to the complete form of the Sambhogakaya. The statue in front of me is also a Ksitigarbha statue, but there are 2 types of Ksitigarbha statues. One type holds a treasure vase and precious jewels in his hands, a wish-fulfilling jewel and a treasure vase. The treasure vase is here, and in his hand he holds the wish-fulfilling jewel. This one was made by Mipham Rinpoche, and is from the 8 auspicious verses that are recited. The distinguishing features of the 8 great bodhisattvas should be like this. Also, Mipham Rinpoche composed another sadhana for Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. It seems to be the same as this one. In one hand, a magnificent wish-fulfilling jewel is prominently held, and in the other hand, a delicate leaf or a beautiful flower is gently grasped. What exactly is being carefully held here in this image? It truly appears to be a leaf, doesn't it? If you really want to practice, if it is Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, as described in the Tibetan Buddhism, with this kind of appearance, holding a wish-fulfilling jewel or a precious treasure vase, it is also fine to visualize in this way. Or as also further described in Chinese Han Buddhism, with the monastic appearance holding a staff, that is also acceptable. I have seen in many records of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's miraculous responses in Han area, they all follow what is described in the 10 Wheels Sutra of Ksitigarbha, with this kind of a monastic appearance. I have seen in many historical records of miraculous responses in Han area, they all describe the monastic appearance. But in Tibetan area, whether it is in Thangkas of the 8 great bodhisattvas or in statues, there are also such forms. So sometimes indeed, in fact, it is fine for us to use the Tibetan Buddhist image of Ksitigarbha, and the Chinese Han Buddhist one is also acceptable. Of course, whichever bodhisattva you have faith in, actually this bodhisattva sometimes wears this kind of attire and sometimes takes on such postures. All of these should be considered reasonable. But when it comes to good deeds in the Dharma, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva clearly said that whatever good roots are created, good roots are always created. Good roots will bring lasting results, results that matter eternally endure. Next, it is explained that as long as within the Dharma of Shakyamuni Buddha, if you do even the smallest good deed, whether it is as small as a single strand of hair or a single drop of water, a single grain of sand or a speck of dust, no matter how tiny, even as small as a hair's breadth, even the tiniest bit, if you perform such good deeds, then Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva says, relying on my blessing power, I will gradually and continually liberate these sentient beings, enabling them to attain the greatest temporary and ultimate benefit. Therefore, whether we truly rely on an image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or indeed on the Sutra of Ksitigarbha, or on the sacred name of Ksitigarbha, anyone who forms a connection with Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, even if it is just a very tiny, indeed a truly good root, this should be considered the absolute best kind of connection for all sentient beings. Because if we do not rely on him, if we haven't even done the slightest good deed, then there is no way to attain liberation, no way to form a connection. For example, as long as we just really have even a tiny bit of good roots, there is indeed hope. There is certainly a clear way forward. So in the recent past, it was said, do not refrain from doing good just because it is small. Do not do evil just because it is minor. This is also what the ancients taught. Do not think that just because a good deed is small, you shouldn't do it. Don't ever think, what difference does it make if I recite a sacred name today? Or if I prostrate just once today or offer a lamp? What does that really matter? You shouldn't think this way. Even if we recite the name of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva 7 times, it brings great transformation and benefit to the whole world, to our personal afflictions and so on. There are tremendous changes and benefits. Let's all recite together. Shangchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Chanlum Chodur Kyasum Je. Shangchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Chanlum Chodur Kyasum. Shangchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Chanlum Chodur Kyasum. Shangchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Chanlum Chodur Kyasum. Shangchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Chanlum Chodur Kyasum. Shangchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Chanlum Chodur Kyasum. Shangchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Chanlum Chodur Kyasum Je. O Sai Nyambo Kiki Tuki Dom Zabar Monam Jinse Nibi Lame Ishi Jimchi Chinja Tinja Kunra Dason Girvara. At that time, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, with profound compassion, said this. He said, even if you do just a tiny good deed within the Dharma, I truly have a reliable way for these sentient beings to indeed attain liberation. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva then respectfully said, I only wish, world-honored one, my great revered teacher, that you do not worry about the evil beings of future generations. Shakyamuni Buddha, please entrust these wicked and pitiable beings to me. You don't need to worry. You can be completely at ease. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva made this vow to the Buddha 3 times. Declaring it repeatedly, the promise was firm. His commitment stayed steadfast. He said, I only wish, world-honored one, that you don't worry about the evil beings of future generations. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva especially focuses on those particular evil beings, those whose karmic obstacles are extremely heavy. Indeed, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has a way to help them. At that time, he repeatedly said this 3 times before the Buddha. Even the most disobedient, the most stubborn and difficult to transform, those bad people whom even you cannot help, if you entrust them all to me, I still have a way. Please rest assured, O world-honored one. Indeed, even in this very age of the Dharma's decline, whether we are trying to help sentient beings, or we ourselves are deeply troubled within our own mind stream, if we sincerely pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, it is truly the immense power of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's great vows. His promise made before the world-honored one that the negative karma and conditions of sentient beings in this degenerate world are actually very well matched to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's compassionate activity. With all kinds of causes and conditions, he truly has many skillful means. Otherwise, we sentient beings in the age of 5 degenerations are sometimes truly pitiable, to the point where words truly cannot describe it, extremely pitiable. That is precisely why, here in front of the revered Buddha, he repeatedly and stated, all evil beings, please leave them to me. I have the complete means to help them. Later, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva also made this promise again and again. And finally, before the Buddha manifested parinirvana, he said, all sentient beings of this degenerate world were entrusted to you. This was what was said at the time. So, we sentient beings in this impure world, if we look at current situation from outside, whether it's elements of earth, water, fire, wind, or wars, famines, compared to the past, indeed, not to mention the historically significant Tang dynasty, a period when Buddhism was profoundly at its flourishing peak, and now for a considerable and extended period of time, probably for the past 30 or 40 years, all kinds of natural and man-made disasters in the external world have also become extremely severe. The various underlying causes and conditions in between, including Buddhist temples and statues, as well as the successive passing of many eminent monks and revered great masters, all sorts of disheartening and unfortunate bad news continue to keep coming one after another, creating a pervasive sense of unease and difficulty within all of us, among all sentient beings. Indeed, within the human experience, there is the presence of greed, anger, ignorance, jealousy, and arrogance, as well as all sorts of other detrimental influences, including flattery and hatred. These represent the secondary and primary afflictions that plague the mind. They surge up relentlessly, much like powerful, ceaseless waves in the vast ocean, and are unfortunately increasing in their intensity and prevalence day by day. At such a time, it is truly necessary to have Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with extremely strong aspirations. Otherwise, it is very difficult to truly change the negative conditions of all sentient beings. Generally speaking, in the early kalpas, when the Dharma was truly flourishing in the past, and the afflictions of sentient beings were relatively weak, there may have been many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas too. There were also many eminent monks and great masters, those who attained realization or achieved accomplishment in practice. All the positive conditions in every aspect were fully present. But now, in this degenerate age, in many respects, there is indeed a need for beings like Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, those who possess truly great power, such as the revered Tara or the enlightened Guru Padmasambhava, are truly remarkable figures. If sentient beings pray with truly and very urgent, sincere faith, perhaps things can be fundamentally transformed. Even if they cannot be changed, it is still the karma of sentient beings, and also our own karma. There is nothing we can do about it either. So in this regard, everyone should also reflect. Finally, the Buddha praised Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva with delight, saying, "Excellent, excellent. I truly and deeply rejoice in all your noble and compassionate actions. You are able to fully and completely fulfill the vast and profound aspirations you have made over countless eons of dedicated effort." Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, throughout countless eons of time and unwavering commitment, the vows you made to spread the Dharma and benefit sentient beings are extremely powerful. Your activity to liberate beings is also extremely complete. In this way, you will be able to attain Buddhahood, because when all the activities of spreading the Dharma and benefiting sentient beings are finally complete, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva never said he would never become a Buddha. Ultimately, when all the arduous activity of liberating all sentient beings is completely finished, he will also certainly attain full Buddhahood. All right, that's all for today's discussion.
Bandharangara Padma Sadar